The national championship between Notre Dame and Ohio State is just 3 days away, and Buckeye fans are as confident as ever while seemingly everybody is picking them to win. But could the added pressure on Ohio State be a good thing for Notre Dame? That's next on Locked On Irish.
You are Locked On Irish, your daily podcast on the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, and welcome into Locked On Irish, your daily Notre Dame podcast. My name is Tyler Wojciak, and I'm the host. I'm a Notre Dame alum and producer at Fox Sports, and today is Friday, January 17th. So happy Friday, everybody, and thanks for getting your weekend started right here by making this your first listen of the day. Before we get rolling, I'd really appreciate it if you took a quick second to subscribe on YouTube or your preferred podcast platform. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win your first bet. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started. Really excited about today's show. I've been previewing the national championship all week long. I did my big preview episode on Wednesday with my scouting report, keys to the game, predictions, all that good stuff. Then on Thursday, Tim O'Malley from Irish Illustrated stopped by to do a deep dive into the biggest storylines and most intriguing matchups in the game. But since today is Friday, we're going to have some fun, mix things up a little bit. Mark Titus from Barstool Sports is going to join me in just a second so we can hear how the other side thinks about this matchup. And let's just get this out of the way first. Mark is a proud Buckeye, and he is very confident. Like most Ohio State fans, he played basketball at OSU under Thad Matta with Greg Oden and Mike Conley, and we used to work together at Fox Sports before he left to go to Barstool, and we shared plenty of trash talk back and forth about our teams, and it's all in good fun, but we also got into how the added pressure on Ohio State could be a good thing for Notre Dame. I really enjoy this one. I hope you do too. Let's bring him in. All right, Mark, we meet again before Notre Dame takes on Ohio State. Last year you came on before these two teams face each other, and what was easily one of the biggest games of the season. We all know how that turned out, and I remember as I was walking out of that stadium, totally dejected. I remember thinking Notre Dame might not get the chance to redeem themselves for the way that ended against the Buckeyes, at least not for a long, long time. And here we are just 15 months later in a rematch for the national championship. Like, how have you processed the fact we get this matchup again on the biggest stage?
I was at the game as you were in South Bend last time we played. I remember leaving that game just like, first of all, I've never heard so many silent people, if that makes sense. You can't really hear silence, I guess, but that was just like it was like the most, like Notre Dame fans were convinced they were going to win. I became, as a Buckeye, as the game was wearing on, I became convinced Notre Dame was going to win. We won the game, and it was like Ohio State pulled off a heist, and we were just like, we got to get the hell out of here right now before they review some sort of play or like call a penalty of something. Like, I was like, I don't know how we won this game, but we got to get the hell out of here right now. So yeah, I mean, for me, it was like I was kind of stunned that we won last time we played. And I had the similar feeling that you had, which is like I guess we're done with Notre Dame for a while because we did the home and home. Football schedules come out 12 years in advance, and I hadn't heard about Notre Dame and Ohio State home and home set for like 2056 or whatever it is they're scheduling out for now. So I was like, I don't know when the next time we'll play Notre Dame is. And wouldn't you know it, here we are, right back playing each other. This time the stakes are higher. But yeah, I feel like the vibes are weird because like Ohio State has somehow become like the big juggernaut that's like unbeatable. Like the story of the Ohio State season has been like, we are unbeatable. We have like, we brought everybody back. We hit the portal. We got the best freshman in the country in Jeremiah Smith. Like, we have no weaknesses. And then suddenly we lose, and it's like Fire Ryan Day. This is the worst team we've ever seen. And then like we lose to Oregon. It's like we gotta blow everything up right now. And then we start rolling again, and everybody's great. And then we lose to Michigan, and we back. Like the whiplash is insane that I can't. Going to a national championship, I think Buckeye Nation is very, very confident about this, which has, frankly, I mean, there is some sort of rivalry, I think, with Notre Dame, but it frankly has nothing to do with Notre Dame. I think it just has to do with how well Ohio State's been playing lately. But it is insane to think about the ups and downs of this season, and that we're going into a national championship against a team that, like, there's some familiarity there. I mean, we've played, this will be what, the third year in a row we've played each other?
Yeah.
Right. With a coach that's from Ohio State, and with an 88-year-old man attached to your program that wants to kill our coach. It's like, man, it's kind of weird how confident we are that almost scares me. But no, I love this. This is I don't know, we can get into it, but Notre Dame was a program that I grew up hating, despising, and now I found myself, as I was watching the other side of the bracket, I was rooting for the Irish. So this is kind of a fun matchup for me.
Yeah, I feel like the paths for Notre Dame and Ohio State are somewhat similar in the sense that both teams came into the season with really high expectations, and they've experienced like the highest of highs in the way of the national championship, but also the lowest of lows during the regular season when Notre Dame lost to Northern Illinois. Just an awful day for me, beginning to end. And then Ohio State felt something similar when they lost to Michigan later on in the year. Like, after that loss to Michigan, did you ever expect that Ohio State could get back to this point? Because I didn't even expect Notre Dame to make the playoff after NIU.
Yeah, so when we lost to Michigan, first of all, I saw it coming, not like in the days leading up to it, but as the game, like at halftime, I was like, we're going to lose. And that wasn't me being a defeatist. I just kind of saw Ryan Day inside his own head, and I was like, this is just turning into a nightmare scenario. And then obviously we did lose, and Jack Sawyer had the big interception, and it was like, okay, well, now if we can not screw this up, maybe there's hope. And we lose the game. And I came away from the Michigan game like the realistic part of me, that my brain was like, we still have an insane amount of talent. We're going to make the playoff. If these guys can pull it together, there is a chance that we can do what we're now seeing them do, which is, march to the national championship. But I'll be honest, like no part of me thought that would actually happen, because that was sort of the messaging after the Oregon game when we go on the road and play the number one team in the country. And actually, I don't know if Oregon was number one. I can't remember if they were one at that point or not, but we play them. We play Oregon and Eugene, and it comes down to the final play. Will Howard slides too late, and we all know what kind of happened. And all the messaging from the Ohio State locker room was like, that actually was a good thing that we lost that game, because we're going to use it as fuel, and we're going to come together, and we're going to, all the cliches that you hear out of a football team. So when we lost to Michigan, I, as a Buckeye fan, was like, I don't want to hear we're going to come together again. We already tried that. We already went down that path of like let's all come together. I genuinely thought that these guys were going to fold. I genuinely thought that, like, especially not only that we lost to Michigan, but like the fracas on the field afterwards. I was like, dude, these guys are toast. Like, all these guys are so consumed with what's going on with this Michigan deal. I just don't see a world where they're going to go back to practice the next day and lock in to beat Tennessee. And boy, was I wrong. So yeah, I mean, I'm surprised from the mental makeup of this team that they had, the ability to kind of flush that and move past Michigan, which, as you know, and like think like all the college football world has figured out at this point, is a massive deal to Ohio State fans that were losing to Michigan. So I'm surprised that they were able to flush that and move forward. But I can't pretend, like, given the roster that Ohio State has, that I can't pretend that I'm surprised that this group of guys finally pulled their head out of their asses, pulled their heads are out of their asses now, and they're actually playing good football. It's been a lot of fun this stretch. But honestly, like, part of me is like I'm curious your thoughts, Tyler. Like, the Ohio State, as Kirk Herbstreit called him, the lunatic fringe of Ohio State fans. Do you feel like Ohio State finally pulling it together and playing good football in the playoff validates the lunatic fringe, which their viewpoint was, there is a very, very, if not great, a very, very good, if not great team somewhere in that locker room, and we have not seen them really at all this year. And that's why we're losing our mind and want to fire Ryan Day, because we just want that beast to come out. Or do you think this, like, makes them seem insane because it's like, hey, all of you that were freaking out when you lost a regular season game in Eugene, it's a long season. Why were you panicking?
Well, first I would say the lunatic fringe, at least as Kirk Herbstreit described it, he said it was like 10, 15%. I don't think it's that much. I think the lunatic fringe could be whittled down to say, the people who were protesting on the Ohio State campus after Urban Meyer was suspended for like,
yeah, right. That's the lunatic.
That's the lunatic fringe to me. I don't think it's like lunacy to have really high expectations for this Ohio State team, because they brought everyone back. They got Caleb Downs. They got Quinshaw Junkins. The schedule was pretty favorable, even though they had that game on the road against Oregon. So, like, I have no issue with Ohio State fans having really high expectations, and then for them to have that letdown again against Michigan at home, it just didn't make any sense. So I didn't watch any of that game live because I was at the Notre Dame USC game, and that game was happening like while we were tailgating. So I'd pull it up on my phone sometimes. I was like, I can't believe they're going to blow this. So after that game and the way that it all ended, were you in the fire Ryan Day camp after that? Because I feel like a lot of people, not only was it like fire Ryan Day, it's like, I don't even want to watch the team anymore in the playoff, which we all know wasn't actually true, but the sentiment was strong.
So I'll be honest, like when we lost, I did have the thought of, I don't want to watch the team in the playoff, mostly because I want the Michigan game to matter. And part of me in a twisted way, it doesn't make any sense. And I don't even believe this. I'm just telling you what I felt in the moment. I wanted that to end our season because I don't think you should be allowed to lose your rival in that fashion and then still like go win the national championship and then be like, oh, okay, well, that wasn't that big of a deal. Like it felt weird to me that I was like, you can't lose that game and you lost it. And yet you're still, you could still accomplish like the ultimate prize. It just like, I don't know, but that's the new era of college football with the 12-team playoff. I didn't think fire Ryan Day, but like I like Ryan. I've liked Ryan Day for most of his career, and I've been very, very patient with him. But it got to a point where I realized this would be 4 years in a row now where there are 3 goals for Ohio State football every single year. 1 is beat Michigan, 2 is win the Big Ten championship, and 3 is win the national championship. Now, if you can do 1 out of 3 on any given year, that's a passable grade. That's a fine season. No real complaints, could have done better, but like no real complaints. 2, you had a pretty good season. We probably are going to print some sort of t-shirt for you, like, wow, good year. We did 2 of the 3. You do all 3, you're a legend. That's a legendary, like all-time season at Ohio State. But those are the 3 goals every year. And this was now, with 1 game remaining against Notre Dame, should we lose to the Irish, that's 4 years of going 0 for 3 every single year. And when you start thinking about it that way, you're like, this is Ohio State. The expectations are as high as any other program in the country. I didn't want necessarily Ryan Day's head on a spike, but it got to the point where I was like, if they do in fact fire him, I can't be sad about this or argue against it anymore because that's where we're at. But thankfully, the expanded playoff gave him new life. And, it is kind of weird how Michigan seems to be taking credit for this, or at least people, if I have to hear someone else say like, that was actually good that you guys lost to Michigan because it awoke in this beast that's now ripping through the playoff. No, I mean, I get what they're saying, but like that wasn't good. That wasn't fun, man. That wasn't, I don't want to, could there be another way to awaken the beast? Do we have to lose to Michigan every year?
No, I feel that. That's how I feel whenever I see Thomas Hammock, the NIU coach, doing his press tour, basically accepting responsibility for Notre Dame's run to the national championship. But that does bring up a good point because, like, I don't want to say all the pressure is on Ohio State. That's just not true. Notre Dame is trying to end a 35-year national championship drought, so they're dealing with pressure, even though they're big underdogs in this game. But I think it's fair to say that there is significantly more pressure on Ohio State because they're the heavy favorites, and they're still dealing with those lingering questions after the loss to Michigan and the fact that they didn't make the Big Ten championship. I consider you a rational fan. How much pressure do you think is on this team going into this game because of what you just said? Like, they are in danger of going 0 for 3, even though they're in the championship.
There's an immense amount of pressure, but it's like packaged differently. Like the pressure comes from a place of confidence. And I'll be honest. And I know this to be true because, like you said, I do think of myself as, it's a very pretentious, anybody. I understand how this is going to sound, but I genuinely try to think of myself as like a more rational Ohio State football fan because I did not grow up in the state. I did not grow up in an Ohio State house. I was not like indoctrinated into Ohio State football. I came about it naturally just by going to school there. So I feel like, the way I talk to my friends about Ohio State football, I always come away thinking like they're insane. And I'm trying to like pump the brakes a little bit. And I say all that to say, Tyler, that even I am probably the most rational Ohio State football fan I know. I am extremely confident that we are going to win the national championship. And that's not to say I don't respect Notre Dame or I don't think there's any world in which we lose. It's just like how much talent there is on this team and how they're clicking and all of that makes it to where I don't know, like it's almost a foregone conclusion for Ohio State fans. And the reason I mention all that is that it's like a weird kind of pressure where if you're forecasting like what happens if we lose, it's almost like I don't even know if we can comprehend it yet because I think like every Ohio State fan has already figured out that they've won the game. And that's kind of giving me pause because I'm like, why are we so like, this is crazy. We're playing for a national championship against a team that plays great defense. Like if you're making the profile like a Michigan sort of comparison, we've already lost to a team that, don't take this the wrong way, but we already lost to a team that plays insanely great defense and has a quarterback.
No, I get it.
Throw. And now we're playing an even better team than what Michigan was. And yet somehow, like Ohio State fans, we've talked ourselves into like, we're definitely going to win. So I think the pressure, unlike like the Michigan pressure came from a place of like cautious optimism of like, God, we got to break these shackles that Michigan has on us. And, I really, really hope like, we got it. Like it was almost, and this one's like, we've already planned the parade. We've already planned, and if it all falls apart, I don't know if Ryan Day, I don't know. I feel like he's probably like, he's not going to get fired. It's too far in the season and the recruiting cycle and all that. So he's going to keep his job. So in that regard, like, I don't think there's a ton of pressure, but this would, given the run that Ohio State has gone on, given the confidence of the fan base, the talent that we're finally seeing these last few weeks, what I think all the Buckeye fans thought this team would be, I think if they fall short when they're a pretty heavy favorite in the national championship to a team that, again, no disrespect, but for Ohio State fans, we've kind of owned through the years. Like we kind of feel like we should beat Notre Dame every time we play them. It'll be a sad scene in Columbus. It'll be like just a shock, like what the hell just happened type vibe, which kind of scares me honestly, because it's like we're not playing a MAC school, we're playing Notre Dame,
Mark's going to be right back here with us in a second to discuss what Notre Dame can learn from Michigan's win over Ohio State. But first, I want to tell you about Prizepicks, the place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions in winnings, Prizepicks has changed the game in daily fantasy sports. Whether it's the playoffs or regular season, Prizepicks has made it easier than ever to win big while enjoying all the football action. Now it's playoff time, and there's no better way to get in on the action than with Prizepicks. Here's how it works. You simply pick more or less on at least 2 players. And if your picks hit, you could win up to 1,000 times your cash. Yes, that's right. 1,000 times your money just by making a few simple picks. For me, I'm all about the hot takes this season. This week on Prizepicks, I'm looking at Lamar Jackson for more than 250 passing yards and Travis Kelce for more than 70 receiving yards. It's fun to predict and easy to play. Plus, with Prizepicks' Flex Play, you can still double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. And with the app, you get your winnings fast, sometimes in as little as 15 minutes. Ready to run your game this football season? Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's right, $50 just for playing. Don't wait. Take your game to the next level with Prizepicks. Prizepicks, run your game. Yeah, I think Notre Dame looks at that Michigan game and sees the formula where I felt like Ohio State came into that game. They were so hyped. They were so ready to go. They were so ready to make a statement. They hold Michigan to a punt on the first drive of the game, and then they have a long drive that ends up in a field goal. And then Will Howard throws an interception, and then they miss a field goal. So now all of a sudden, Michigan is in the game, and I think that as the game went on, like you said earlier, like at halftime, Ryan Day felt the pressure of like, oh my God, this is still a game. We could lose to Michigan. I think the hope for Notre Dame is that they come out ready to go, and they just keep this a game until the fourth quarter. And then at that point, anything can happen. And you're just kind of hoping at that point that Ryan Day folds under the pressure like he did against Michigan. Because like you said, like if it is a game in the fourth quarter and everyone has to reconcile with the fact that like, oh my God, Ohio State could lose this, that is pretty much Notre Dame's best chance of winning. I think they're capable of getting to that point. But if Ohio State comes out and they play their best game, or they come out and they go up 2 touchdowns early on, like even the crazy Notre Dame fans would agree, yeah, it's going to be tough sledding from there on out.
Yeah, I think that's where the confidence comes from Ohio State fans. I think we've seen enough to know that that Notre Dame probably can't beat us unless we help them. By turnovers, by blown coverages, just stupid penalties, which was kind of happening against Texas. So that's the other part of it is like, I don't think Notre Dame can probably, if we play our quote unquote A game, we're probably going to win. The issue is that Ohio State, any kind of Ohio State team can show up on any given night. And maybe, that was sort of happening when we played Texas, a bunch of dumb penalties, and Will Howard trying to force the ball to Jeremiah Smith. And, stuff like that can happen. And Notre Dame, I do think the thing you have going for you too, Marcus Freeman's got some big balls, and I could see, fourth quarter, it's Notre Dame's down 7. You guys scored. You're going for 2 in the win, and that sort of, like the tie.
Yeah.
There's 2 minutes. Like, no, Marcus Freeman's going to do that sort of thing that scares me. And I think Ryan Day, you want to talk about getting inside his head. I am legitimately, this is not a joke. It's going to sound like I'm joking. The biggest concern I have as a Buckeye right now is Lou Holtz.
What?
Ohio State fans need to kidnap Lou Holtz and not let him tweet or say anything about Ryan Day.
You really think that? But I mean, I know what he said last year, but when he tweeted that out, by the way, there's no way Lou Holtz is firing off tweets. That's probably like his granddaughter or someone. You think that actually matters, and that's getting to the Ohio State locker room?
Well, we lost to Michigan, not because Michigan is better than us this year, I'm saying. We lost to Michigan because Ryan Day was convinced that we were going to beat Michigan by 100 this year. And he was like, I don't want to just win the game. I want to run the score up and beat them by playing their game. I want to run the ball down their throat. And he was like trying to run the score up before we even scored. He was trying to like prove someone got in Ryan Day's ear, and it was probably Jim Harbaugh, and said, it doesn't count as a win against Michigan unless you prove you're tough along the way. And that's what was so infuriating about the Michigan game, was like, we have these Ferraris out in space, like give them the ball, let them go be athletes. And he's like, no, we're going to run the ball between the tackles right at the strength of the Michigan defense.
Yeah.
We're going to do it over and over and over again. And it just didn't work. And Ohio State fans are going crazy. But he was trying to like send a message that like, I am tough. My team is tough. And that's what Lou Holtz is doing to him. That's what Lou Holtz did to him last time. That's why he lost his mind. He's yelling about an 87-year-old man last year. So I'm worried about that. I don't want Ryan Day. Or maybe it's just like Ryan Day, someone steal his phone. Don't let him look at anything. I don't want him to know what Lou Holtz is saying, because the last thing I need is Ryan Day going into this game saying, all right, we're heavy favorites. Our team is rolling. Notre Dame's banged up. Screw it. Let's not just win this game. Let me shove the ball down Lou Holtz's throat, and he gets caught.
Yeah.
Because it's happened before. It happened with Michigan. So
no, it's true. I think he tried to beat Michigan by being Michigan, and it didn't work out. But that's kind of what pissed me off so much about that game last year and the way it ended. Like, Notre Dame came up with that huge stop on 4th and 1, and Day ran that like weak ass end around.
I know.
Like, he did it. He did the finesse thing. Like, he's going to do it.
Yeah,
and the most important. And then the fact that they won, like, none of that matters. Then he gets to beat his chest and say, where's Lou Holtz right now? But I think Notre Dame's plan is to try to get Ohio State to play the game that they want to play, kind of in the way that Nebraska did it, Penn State did it, and Michigan did it. Like, that is Notre Dame's best path to victory. And that is kind of what happened in that game last year. So do you put like any stock in the way that game played out in 2023 as an indicator of like what could happen in this game? Because it's a lot of new faces, but some of the same people as well.
I feel like, I mean, I think I could see it being a defensive battle like last year was. Last year was kind of frankly, like not the most aesthetically pleasing football game.
Right.
Very defensive, and points were at a premium for sure. But I think both defenses are awesome. I like to think that we're gonna, especially like playing indoors, and weather's not going to be a factor and all that. I would like to think that we're gonna let it fly a little bit more, but I don't know what that looks like, because I think Texas did a great job of limiting Jeremiah Smith's touches and kind of taking him out of the game, and we have a lot of weapons, Ohio State does, but I also know that there's like something in Ryan Day's brain and Chip Kelly's brain. It's like, we got to get the ball to 4. We got to get the ball to 4, which is why if you watch the Texas game, the interception Will Howard had almost felt like they told Will Howard, like, no matter what, drop back and throw the ball to Jeremiah Smith. It's been way too long since he's touched the ball, and he tried, and it was picked off. So I think it'll probably be on our end. I see us, especially given like I not to beat a dead horse, but that whole Michigan like kind of arc for our team of like, we lost to Michigan, we lost to Michigan in a specific type of way, and after that it was like the playbook opened up, and since the playoffs have started, Ohio State's approach has been like, if we're going to go down, getting the ball to our best players, our elite athletes out in space, give them open field to make guys miss. So I think the Buckeye approach to this game will be more of that, where it wasn't really last year. Like last year, it was Kyle McCord. Like McCord would just throw it up to Marvin Harrison. That was kind of the only aerial attack that he felt comfortable with, which is funny because then he went to Syracuse and he's throwing for 500 yards every game. So I see Ohio State spreading it out a little more. TreVeyon Henderson had a big run against you guys last year. I don't want to tell you.
Difference in the game.
I don't want to scout for you, but I would be on the lookout for that. He's like good for one of those home run type runs, or as a screen pass against Texas last game. He's good for one of those every so often. But yeah, I think you'll see more of hopefully more of a wide open, more aggressive Ohio State rather than just trying to run the ball and get into a defensive battle, which is kind of how our team operated last year. But having said all that, that might work in Notre Dame's favor because Will Howard, I love the guy. He's been, I think, national media talking about Will Howard. There's like a narrative that he's like not that good and he's not like one of the elite quarterbacks. Maybe that's true. I don't know. But I freaking loved him as an Ohio State fan. I've loved him all season. But having said all that, there is generally there are one or two plays a game where he just makes the biggest bozo decisions. And he's, I mean, like, if you watch the Penn State Ohio State game, opening drive, he throws a pick six, and you're like, why would you throw that? What were you looking at? But then he's got a great ability to just flush it and bounce back and next play mentality. But as I think about like the way this goes right for Notre Dame is maybe we start getting we're feeling ourselves a little too much, pushing the ball downfield a little too much, and Will Howard's trying to throw it in tight windows and trying to get the ball to four and all that sort of thing. And we get a little too aggressive. That's kind of the nightmare scenario for us is Will Howard has some bozo plays, takes dumb sacks. He almost did one against Texas. I mean, he went to like throw the ball in that one and he's getting hit and like the ball bounced and like,
he did fumble that. He just landed right on top.
Yeah, he just landed on it. So there are some of those moments that will happen probably in this game. And I think that's probably more of a feel versus like the, more of a like, let's hand the ball off, more of the hand it off, incomplete pass, punt. Now let's play defense and like doing that for four quarters. I don't know if it'll be that necessarily. I'm curious to see what Notre Dame, the Riley Leonard, for a guy who quote unquote can't throw the ball, he's really making me worry a little bit about how athletic he is and all that. So I'm curious what the Notre Dame offense will. Our defense is playing well, but I'm worried about that. I think one more thing I had for you guys. I'm also worried about the parallel. A lot of people are making the Ohio State connection that when the playoff expanded to 4 teams in 2014, we won the first ever, 4-team college football playoff. Now it's gone to 12. 10 years later, there's a lot of parallels between the two teams of like, this is a new format. Ohio State's going to show you how to win in this format, and then we're going to step aside and let others win for the coming years. I think the parallel about 2014 that scares me the most is Notre Dame is the 2014 Ohio State team that loses to Northern Illinois in the way that we lost to Virginia Tech. And the second you lose, the whole college football world is like, this is a humiliating loss. Get them out of the playoff immediately. I never want to hear about them even making the playoff, much less winning the national championship. And then, of course, the Buckeyes go on to win the national championship. I feel like Notre Dame is kind of in a similar position. They're very similar vibes from where I'm sitting.
Yeah, and you think about the fact that Ohio State did that with their third-string quarterback. Notre Dame has their starting quarterback, but there's injuries everywhere on the roster. And it's honestly insane to me that they're even in this position. Like, I think during the regular season when they lost Benjamin Morrison, I was like, I don't know how this team can make a run in the playoff, because I was also just watching like Alabama with Ryan Williams and Ohio State with Jeremiah Smith. It's like, how is Notre Dame going to cover these guys? And then Leonard Moore, the true freshman, steps up, and he's been great. So I have actually been drawing inspiration from not that Ohio State team, but the Ohio State team in 2002. I don't think you were an Ohio State fan at this point. Craig Krenzel, Maurice Clarett. They beat Miami. They were 11.5-point dogs, because I was thinking like the spread right now, I think it's at 8.5. Ohio State is favored. And I was thinking, would that be the biggest national championship upset in college football history? And I looked it up. Ohio State over Miami is up there. I believe when Oklahoma won it with Bob Stoops, either like at the very beginning of the 2000s. So it wouldn't be unprecedented, but if Craig Krenzel can win a national championship, maybe Riley Leonard can. Like, that's kind of how I've rationalized it.
Right. No, I'm excited for this one. I'm not going to pretend like there's a silver lining. If Ohio State loses, I'm not going to be like, well, at least Marcus Freeman won. I won't. I'm not that good of a person. I'm not. I'm gonna feel sorry for myself and I'm gonna pout. And but maybe there's a time some years down the road where I'll look back and be happy for Marcus Freeman, because I have talked to you about that.
Yeah.
And it's certainly not an opinion that I alone hold, but he is awesome. He's so easy to root for. He's made it very difficult for us Notre Dame haters out there to hate Notre Dame. And yeah, it's a confusing time for the haters because we find ourselves loving Marcus Freeman, especially the Ohio State contingent, man, because he was obviously played at Ohio State, and he was in school when I think he's like a year older than I was, so I remember his career well. I remember watching him and cheering for him, and he was awesome back then. He's awesome now, and yeah, in a weird way, I kept saying if no one else can win it, I want Marcus Freeman to win it, but now that we're here, it's like, well, I mean, no, now I want us to win it. You know what I'm saying?
Mark and I still have more to get to, specifically his perspective on how Ohio State fans view Marcus Freeman. But before we do, I want to tell you about this great new promotion courtesy of our friends at FanDuel. From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win your first bet. That's $300 to keep the action going. The FanDuel app is easy to navigate, and the variety of bets keeps every game exciting. Plus, when you win, you get paid instantly. No waiting around for your winnings, and whether you're betting on your favorite team or just looking to add some extra excitement to the playoffs, FanDuel has you covered. So many great games this weekend. My pick, I'm taking Kansas City Chiefs money line. I know, kind of a cop-out pick, but I'm just not going to bet against Mahomes in the NFL playoffs. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today, and you will get started with $300 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Yeah, how do you think most Ohio State fans feel about Marcus Freeman? Because he's still a Buckeye, but he did ruffle some feathers when he first took the job because he had that Players Tribune article where he said he wasn't going to make the same mistake twice. He certainly walked that back, and I think, I'm sure if you gave him some truth serum, like during the semifinals after Notre Dame had already beaten Penn State, like who would you rather play in the national championship? I'm sure he would have said Texas, not only just because he probably is getting sick of being asked about playing against his alma mater, but it also just brings more attention to him. But I also think it adds pressure on Ryan Day because it's like, man, if you lose this game, all hell is going to break loose. But if you lose it to another Buckeye, then everyone's just going to be like, well, we want him to be the coach.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? It just creates a weird dynamic for both sides.
Yeah, I mean, as far as I know, I don't speak for every Ohio State fan, but the ones I know a lot of them, and no one has a bad word to say about the guy. So like even the whatever rivalry or tug of war there is between Ohio State and Marcus Freeman and Notre Dame, that's just competitive. It's just natural. Like nobody honestly expects Marcus Freeman going into last year's game, the year before, this national championship to be like, I love the Buckeyes. I don't expect that. We know how this works. So like beyond his affiliation with the university and having played there and all that, I think there's also just an appreciation for how he runs the program and how just likable of a human being he is, one, but also just like, I think if you're just a fan of football and you're a fan of guys who get the most out of their players and guys who get players to respond to them, and to have your players want to run through a brick wall for you, that sort of thing, you can't help but like respect what Marcus Freeman has done there. And I think that's more than anything else. Like I do think that Ohio State, him having gone to Ohio State, makes a lot of Ohio State fans pay attention in the first place, maybe in a way they wouldn't have. But I think even if he had gone to Washington and he was the head coach at Notre Dame, I think you'd still like the guy. Like I don't think it's just like Ohio State fans that like Marcus Freeman. I think everybody generally across the country does. And that's why I think he should lose this game, Tyler, because if you win national championships in college football, you instantly become unlikable. He doesn't want that. You should become likable.
Yeah,
you don't want to win national championships and everybody hates you. Everybody wanted to see Kirby Smart beat Nick Saban, and then he did. And now it's like, get this guy out of my face. And same with Dabo, and same with all these guys. We don't want to. Once you win, you're an enemy. So
yeah, that's an unbelievable spin zone by you.
I was trying.
I've got to admit, I'm impressed by that.
By the way, I've been trying. I've been failing miserably, but I've been trying to get Marcus Freeman an NFL job this week. I've been trying to get that going. I've been trying to get someone to write a report that Marcus Freeman's looking to take the Bears job. And
well, have the Bears interviewed you yet? Because I think they're on number 55. It's insane.
They're talking to everybody.
I think you might be next, honestly, at this point. They want a leader of men, and that's what I think of you as. Yeah. But before we wrap things up here, I do want to ask, give me your official prediction. How do you think this game plays out? I think I know who you're going to pick, but do you see it being a close game, or do you think Ohio State runs away?
A lot of people I work with are saying Ohio State by a million. I don't know if they're trying to jinx me. I don't know if they're.
I haven't seen anyone pick Notre Dame to cover other than Stanford Steve. That's it.
Yeah, I think this plays out. I think this plays out very similar to the Texas game with Ohio State. I think there will be. Now this is going to be hard for you, everyone else to measure, but I'll be able to measure it in my own heart. I think there will be times throughout the game where my butthole is completely clenched and I'm just like, we're going to blow this, just like I was against Texas. Where up until Jack Sawyer made that play, I was like, I think we're going to lose. I can't believe this is happening, but we have the dumbest penalties and we have turnovers, and like Texas is fumbling the ball and it's bouncing right to them and like nothing. This is crazy. How is this happening? I think it's going to play out like that. I think that Notre Dame's defense is too good. They're too smart. That we're not just going to – there's like some weird expectation that Ohio State is just going to do to Notre Dame what we did to Oregon, which is just like go up 34-0 and move the ball at will. I don't think that's going to happen. I see us winning the game, but I think that I will not feel comfortable until like 5 minutes left or 4 minutes left in the game. Does that make sense? And then we win by – I still think we'll cover though, Tyler. I think we cover. I think we do I think Notre Dame – I think you guys are down like – 10 to 14-ish. We score with like 5 minutes left to go up 2 touchdowns. You get the ball back, and then now you're driving, and then you go for it on 4th down and don't get it, and that's when the game's over. That's my official prediction. We win by 14.
That'd be extremely painful. Not quite as painful as the way that last year's game ended, but this is going to be – are you going to the game?
I was going to, and then long story short, no, I'm not.
Okay, so I was at 2012 Notre Dame, Alabama. That game was over in the first quarter. I was also at Game 6, Indians Cubs World Series. The Indians have a chance to clinch the World Series. I'm there in person. That was 7-0 Cubs in the second inning. So I have been able to watch my team have a chance to win the championship, and both times the game was over immediately. So. Yeah. I am still like, I have PTSD from that, and I'm going to be there for this game in Atlanta. And I need it to be, I can't do that.
Need it to be close.
That is so depressing. I really do think that there is a way. Maybe I'm just drinking all the Kool-Aid and I've just bought into the mystique of this team. I think Notre Dame gets Ohio State in deep water late in the game. And I just think that Will Howard or someone makes like a big mistake late.
Yeah.
So I've been on record. I think Notre Dame could actually pull it off, but I am nervous because my record at these games is 0-2. Not to mention the fact that like I've had other teams, like I love the Cavs and they've been in the NBA Finals a bunch while I've been alive. They've only won one. That's the only championship I've ever seen from any of my teams. The fact that it's this close again, I'm going to be there. Like I'm so nervous. And if it's a game late in the fourth quarter, at least this time I'll get my money's worth.
I think you guys are certainly the kitchen sink team. I'm worried about that. The trick plays, the God knows what else that Marcus Freeman has up his sleeve. And I do think that matters. I mean, you asked me earlier about the pressure going into this game. I think the team that has the pressure is the team that will play conservatively, and that's certainly Ohio State. And I hope we do spread it out a little bit and we don't take the same approach that we took against Michigan. But I do think that the aggressive calls on 4th down, say, or do we blitz here or do we not blitz? Like those sorts of things, I do think that'll favor Notre Dame because I think you'll roll the dice a little bit more. And, there is a world where it works out. And I don't know. I don't need anybody else to tell me Ohio State's going to win like 35-3. I got way too many of that. I got way too much of that going on in my life right now. I think it's going to be a good game. I think, that's the way I see it playing out is like we're up 7 with the ball with like 8 minutes left. And if Notre Dame can just get a stop and get the ball back, they might be cooking. And hopefully the Buckeyes punch it in and we go up 2 scores and I can chill out a little bit.
I've got one prop for you. I think Riley Leonard catches a pass in this game. I just feel like that's going to happen. It hasn't happened one time all season, but I feel like, Notre Dame is going to empty out the kitchen sink against him, and I think that Riley Leonard is going to actually catch a pass. But one question, basketball one on the way out, because I've got you here. Notre Dame basketball has been dealing with the injury bug this year as well. They've had to play without their star, Marcus Burton, for most of the year, and also the freshman, Sir Mohammed. So it's been pretty disappointing so far, but there's plenty of reasons to be excited about the future. Like when 5-star Jalen Harrelson's coming on board. Are you more less or the same amount of confident in Micah Shrewsbury now than you were when he was first
I'm honestly
hired?
more. I'm honestly more. I think the recruiting, he gets the recruiting rolling, that you guys are going to be cooking. And I think, the Duke game was incredible. Now Cooper Flagg had like a historic
42,
generational
dude. He's
performance.
kind of good, yeah.
Probably should have guarded him a little bit, but no, the shot making from Notre Dame was. I would be so excited if I was a Notre Dame basketball fan, because that was Marcus Burton's awesome. I love how bouncy he is, and he's Indiana Mr. Basketball. But I'm very excited for Notre Dame in the future, and Harrelson's going to be awesome for you guys. And I think Shrewsbury starts getting his recruits in, especially the ACC is not good. Like the ACC has fallen off. There's a power vacuum there, So I don't know. I love Shrews. I think he's a great coach, and I love Bray too. So
shout out.
I've been a fan of Notre Dame basketball for a while, but I think Shrewsbury will get it going. This year has been a little bit of a disappointment, but the once the pieces get in there, and and you let Shrews do his thing and keep guys healthy, for God's sakes.
Yeah. Once Burt went down, it was like,
that was tough.
Well, this team has something. But there's some whispers out there that they're in the top 3 for Nate Ament. And if they get him, man, like it is.
Yeah.
That still seems like a long shot, but we'll see what happens. He is Mark Titus. You can watch his show, Mostly Sports, with Brandon Walker every weekday at 11 a.m. Eastern. And you can check out his podcast, The Mark Titus Show, all on Barstool Sports. Thanks so much for taking the time to do this, man. You know how much I appreciate it. Take care. But I hope you have an absolutely miserable time
same
on Monday.
Same to you, Tyler. See you, man.
All right, that's going to do it for today's episode. Thanks again for making Locked On Irish your first listen of the day. I'm going to be right back here with a special Sunday morning edition of the show. I'm going to be doing another crossover episode, this time with Jay Stevens, the host of Locked On Buckeyes. So make sure you check that out on Sunday. Then on Monday, the day of the game, I'm doing another mailbag. So if you still got some time to submit your questions, if you haven't already, as always, you can submit yours in the YouTube comments, on X at Locked On Irish, or on Instagram at Locked On Irish Pod. So make sure you get those questions in if you want to be featured on the show. And while you're at it, make sure that you are subscribed on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you're feeling extra generous today, like the video below if you're watching along, or rate the podcast 5 stars and leave a review on your preferred platform. Have a great weekend, everybody. I will see you on Sunday.